There's a slide that I was mentioning, just another sort of way of expressing peak height velocity. You can see the girls into it a couple of years earlier than the boys. The peak isn't as great for the girls as for the boys. And obviously, you know, the rate of growth slows down, but they're not completely, you know, static. They're still going to be growing, and again, everyone is different. You know, you can have some 20-year-old boys who then, you know, if you measure them, are going to be still growing slightly. Everyone is different, and I think one that makes puts the complexity in, makes the coach's life slightly harder to be able to assess all of this. If you're in a laboratory, it's much easier. We haven't, most of us, got the luxury of any of that. So you have to use what you can see. You know, maybe get parents to measure their offspring and see how all of that is happening. Are they growing like Topsy at the moment? And certainly with a height, as I say, with the boys, you can see it. Can you? One lad I coach and now just off to university, his first year at university, he was fairly, you know, a couple of years ago, he was fairly short, you know, not sort of average maturation kind of level. Then all of a sudden he just shot up. He's now 6'4" at least, I think. And, you know, I'm kind of cricking my neck looking up at him, trying to talk to him. So there's all of that going on in that kind of age span and range. If you think about, again, how that is affecting training and competition, think about specialization and non-specialization really is around intensities. You know, how much intensity are they putting into it? How much sort of focus, if you like, in terms of trying to basically become the next Olympic champion when they're 13, which is not necessarily a great idea. Say that because if you look at this slide and the total physical activity and talking about 12 hours plus per week, including the training. So again, you know, thinking about what other sports are they playing? What are they doing in PE lessons in school? Thinking of that overall effect on their bodies, on the performance levels then in terms of, is that taken them forward? Is that a healthy way of doing things? And again, the sport would say yes. So training frequencies, obviously fairly low as you start off, increasing, really stabilizing then as they get into and out of the teenage years, so into their early 20s. The ratio there being mostly sort of generalized training, again, doing some specialist work on a range of different events, but then really refining it as they get older and they're able then to take the different loads because you've primed them by doing the right stuff earlier on. So competition-wise, seeing that there at the bottom, you know, it being fun, clubs, interregional and national competitions if they've got that ability, onto then the ones that are going to reach the podium on the Olympic Games and World Championships and all the rest of it. So again, you know, you will have seen these sorts of slides in the past, getting the fundamental stage, these fundamental movements in place, getting those foundations right, then learning how to train, and then training just for training's sake, just to get into that, to improve, to build them up, and then into starting to compete, and hopefully eventually worrying about winning. And again, put it that way, you know, worrying about winning at that stage, it's the process that's important, not the goal. Now, I'm going to come on to psychology in a little while, and I appreciate that everyone wants to win, but ways of doing it, and again, everyone obviously is different. How many hours you need? There's some doubt that's thrown on. Is it 10,000 hours or not? Let's not get hung up about how many hours, but it's that kind of deliberate practice, is that focus, but how much of that is done early on, even before they reach the teenage years. Well, children learn through play, and they improve and they get exercise through play. So you can very often let them get on with it and find their own answers. Mention a little bit about this, and if anyone has done the Coaching Assistant Award in its latest guise, the picture at the bottom there, they asked the question on how old are these lads? The answer being they're both the same age, both about 15. So early and late maturation, it makes a real big difference. Obviously, the early ones, they do those physical advantages over their peers. They're gonna take all before them and have early success. May get selected, talent ID. I think, you know, we've got to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, some who haven't developed as much yet can catch up. Success comes with little effort. The problem there, of course, being, is when the others do catch up, how is their mind? How is their mindset on all of that? Things seem, you know, start stagnating, you know, the issues, people catching up, success sounds going to be harder. Potential lack of determination, you know, they get switched off and could get into this fixed mindset in terms of, I win, I don't have to train, I'm winning all the time anyway. Why do I need that? Now, one example that, you know, an anecdote that I give you, and I'm not saying that the lad was anything like that, so I didn't know him, but I remember one youth development league a few years ago, only for half a dozen years ago, that we went to. There was a 12-year-old lad from one of the other clubs. He towered over me for a start. I'm not that tall, I hasten to add, but he towered over me, and he had muscles as well. Putting him in ordinary city clothes, and he could have easily passed. I would have thought he'd get into a nightclub easily, pass for 20 or something. And I'm not exaggerating. He then did a hurdles race against one of our lads who was basically up to his chest and didn't stand an earthly. Not a chance. You could tell who was going to win it from the word go. Who was advantaged, who was disadvantaged. You know, it swings and roundabouts in a lot of this. So obviously, the late developers are going to lose out or can lose out to the earlier developers. They might drop out through lack of opportunity. I coached one young lad, again, who was a late developer, tried to keep encouraging him and keep him going. But basically, he got fed up of basically getting trounced. He gave up. He's about 18 or 19 now. Keep in touch through his brother, who I've also coached. And, lad's 6'1" or something now. If he'd stuck in there, maybe he could have got it. Easier said than done, of course. But I think with all of these, the point there about, focusing on skill development, it's always that, think about the early developers. Are they just winning because they're bigger than everyone else? Can you give them some ammunition, if you like, in terms of making sure their coordination is good, that their technique is good. So when everyone else catches up, they've still got that. So you don't get into this mindset that they're just winning. Well, we don't have to do anything because we're just winning. Been through all of that as well. Coached under 30 and was like number 3 in the country. 1 year, next year, he was still making English scores at under 15, but he started dropping down. There's all of these aspects to think about. Make sure you get all these building blocks in place. Make sure the mindset is right, and you've got a fighting chance. So again, going back to that development and how it's the sport sees it as being done. Coaching assistant award slide again, making sure the ABCs, the agility, the balance, the coordination skills are there when they're children. This foundation stage of running, jumping, throwing, because even if you are a runner, if you can jump and you can throw, that brings in the patterns, different patterns. It helps the neurological pathways to do it. It helps your training because you need to get those ideas in and work on those things, things like plyometrics, which is going to help sprinters, is going to help endurance runners, it's going to help throwers, it's going to help jumpers, especially jumpers, but it's going to help everybody. So you lay down all of that before then you get into the event group and think about, the speed group, so sprints and hurdles. There's loads of great sprinters out there. There's not as many hurdlers because people shy away from the hurdles. But if you're quick and you can hurdle, you've got a good chance in the sprint hurdles. Why not give that a go? Why not learn about that? Why not take those skills on board with all the other attributes that it gives in terms of flexibility and all the rest of it? Even if you want to be a sprinter and you turn out to be a sprinter or a jumper or anything else.